Shalom, everyone. This is Brother Doug with the Waken by Yahuwah group. We are doing our annual Moon Day, New Moon Day study. And new moons, you can actually find the new moon days in Scripture. They are one of the appointed times that are actually separate from the annual Leviticus feast days found in Leviticus chapter 23. So we are going to be going into a study now. I'm with my sister Shoshana, sister Susan, um, my brother Dennis, and my sister Sally. And so here we go. And I, just for the heck of it, I'm going to be reading just so I can show my screen with the audience. I will be reading from the English LXX 2012, easier to read Septuagint, and we are going to be in Exodus chapter 12 starting off. We are actually pre-preparing for Passover, everyone who will be listening to this recording. So we are pre-preparing since Passover is a couple months from now, so here we go. Exodus chapter 12. Verse 1, and Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aharon in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be to you the beginning of months. It is the first to you among the months of the year. Speak to all the congregation of the children of Yashraal, saying, On the 10th of this month, let them take a man, a lamb. Let each man take a lamb according to the houses of their families, every man a lamb for his household. And if they be few in a household, so that there are not enough for the lamb, he shall take with himself his neighbor that lives near him, as to the number of souls, everyone according to that which suffices him shall make a reckoning for the lamb. It shall be to you a lamb unblemished, a male of a year old. You shall take it of the lambs and the kids, and it shall be kept by you till the 14th of this month, and all the multitude of the congregation of the children of Yashraal shall kill it toward evening. And they shall take of the blood and shall put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel in the houses in which soever they shall eat them. And they shall eat the flesh in this night, roast with fire. And they shall eat unleavened bread with bitter herbs. You shall not eat of it raw, nor sodden in water, but only roast with fire. The head with the feet and the appurtenances, which in other translations say entrails. Nothing shall be left of it till the morning, and a bone of it you shall not break, but that which is left of it till the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it, your loins girded, and your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is a Passover to Yahuwah. And I will go throughout the land of Egypt in that night, and will strike every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all the mighty ones of Egypt will I execute vengeance. I am Yahuwah, and the blood shall be for a sign to you on the houses in which you are, and I will see the blood and will protect you, and there shall not be on you the plague of destruction when I strike in the land of Egypt. And this day shall be to you a memorial. You shall keep it a feast to Yahuwah throughout all your generations. You shall keep a feast for a perpetual ordinance. Now, you look up the word perpetual, even in a worldly dictionary, it usually means forever. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and from the first day you shall utterly remove leaven from your houses. Whoever shall eat leaven, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from Yashraal, from the first day until the 7th day. And the first day shall be called set apart, and the 7th day shall be a set apart convocation or gathering. to you. You shall do no servile work on them, only as many things as will necessarily be done by every soul. This only shall be done by you. And you shall keep this commandment, for on this day I will bring out your force out of the land of Egypt, and you shall make this day perpetual ordinance for you throughout your generations. Beginning the 14th day of the first month, you shall eat unleavened bread from evening till the 21st day of the month till evening. 7 days leaven shall not be found in your houses. Whoever shall eat anything leavened, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Yashrael, both among the occupiers of the land and the original inhabitants. And you shall eat nothing leavened, but in every habitation of you shall eat unleavened bread. And Moses, or Moshe, called all the elders of the children of Yashrael and said to them, go away and take to yourselves a lamb according to your kindred and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, and having dipped it into some of the blood that is by the door, you shall touch the lintel and shall put it upon both doorposts, even of the blood which is by the door. But you shall not go out every one from the door of his house till the morning. And Yahuwah shall pass by to strike the Egyptians, and shall see the blood upon the lintel and upon both the doorposts, and Yahuwah shall pass by the door, and shall not suffer the destroyer to enter into your houses to strike you. And keep you this thing as an ordinance for yourself and for your children forever. And if you should enter into the land which Yahuwah shall give you, as he has spoken, keep this service. And it shall come to pass, if your sons say to you, what is this service? And that you shall say to them, this Passover is a sacrifice to Yahuwah, as he defended the houses of the children of Yashrael in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians but saved our houses. And people bowed and worshipped, and the children of Yashrael departed and did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aharon, so did they. And it came to pass at midnight that Yahuwah struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive maid in the dungeon, the firstborn of all cattle. And Pharaoh rose up by night, and his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in all the land of Egypt, for there was not a house in which there was not one dead. And Pharaoh called Moshe and Aharon by night and said to them, rise and depart from my people, both you and the children of Yashrael. Go and serve Yahuwah, your Elohim, even as you say. And take with you your sheep and your oxen. Bless me also, I pray you. And the Egyptians constrained the people so that they cast them out of the land with haste. For they said, we all shall die. And the people took their dough before their meal was leavened, bound up as it was in their garments on their shoulders. And the children of Yashrael did as Moshe commanded them, and they asked of the Egyptians articles of silver and gold and apparel. And Yahuwah gave his people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. They lent to them, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Yashrael departed from Ramesses to Succoth, to the full number of 600,000 footmen, even men besides the baggage. And a great mixed company or multitude went up with them, sheep and oxen, very much cattle. And they baked the dough which they brought out of Egypt, unleavened cakes, for it had not been leavened. For the Egyptians cast them out, and they could not remain. Neither did they prepare provision for themselves for the journey. And the sojourning of the children of Yashrael, while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, was 430 years. And it came to pass after the 430 years, all the forces of Yahuwah came forth out of the land of Egypt by night. It is a watch kept to Yahuwah, so that he should bring them out of the land of Egypt. That very night is a watch kept to Yahuwah, so it should be to all the children of Yashrael, to their generations. And Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aharon, this is the law of the Passover. No stranger shall eat of it. And every slave or servant bought with money, him you shall circumcise, and then shall he eat of it. A sojourner or hurling shall not eat of it. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry of the flesh out from the house, and a bone of it you shall not break. All the congregation of the children of Yashrael shall keep it. And if any proselyte shall come to you to keep the Passover to Yahuwah, you shall circumcise. Now, proselyte in other translations will probably say a stranger, I believe, or a servant. You shall circumcise every male of him, and then shall he approach to sacrifice it. And he shall be even as the original inhabitant of the land. No uncircumcised person shall eat of it. There shall be one law to the native and the sojourner coming among you. And the children of Yashrael did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aharon for them, so they did. And it came to pass in that day that Yahuwah brought out the children of Yashrael from the land of Egypt with their forces. That is the end of Exodus chapter 12. Unmute everyone. Wow.
It's interesting that this is a law for everyone, us and the strangers too, and yet you look at the lawlessness today.
Mm-hmm.
They've done away with the laws and replaced it with man's foolishness.
Yes, and really all of his commandments are for all people. People
absolutely
tend to say, "Oh, that's for the Jews." No, it's for
right.
all mankind.
We won't be in the Shemaim here on Eretz unless we obey the law.
Yeah, I mean,
without the law, yeah.
That chapter in particular actually even refers to strangers to keep the law. So, in Christianity, they want to say, we're the Gentiles. Okay, well, Gentiles are supposed to keep it too. So
exactly.
Even if they don't understand that it's impossible to be a believing Gentile, that's an oxymoron, but you want to consider themselves a Gentile, fine. I mean, you still got to keep the Ten Commandments. You still got to keep the law.
Yeah.
Strange thing.
You guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but I gotta run. Shalom, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Shalom.
Okay, Susan. Strange thing is, most people here, there are more Israelites here in America than there are in Israel. True Israelites, and most people here think they're Gentiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really liked. It was very interesting, and this is one of the arguments I've met in the past, is where they say, oh, you have to be native born to eat the Passover, but at the end of the chapter, it actually says that if the person's circumcised. So technically, you can be a stranger and eat the Passover if you're circumcised, and that's the context. They like, I remember like my own folks, would be like, oh well, you're not a native born, you can't eat it. I'm like, but why does it say at the end a sojourner a proselyte, I think actually is a Greek word for sojourner or servant. I forget which one, but it says that if you circumcise him, he shall eat of it.
Right.
So I mean, it's even back then it was for the strangers too. So it's not like that's a new thing.
And Dennis and I, years ago, we were in a group where there was one man who had not been circumcised, and the teacher or leader of the group told him he had to be circumcised before he could take the Passover. So he was obedient and did get himself circumcised before the Passover.
Yes.
Wow.
And there's,
I mean, we could even apply to today with circumcision. Always was meant for the heart first, and so when you have a circumcised heart and you do an outer expression, physically being circumcised, I think that's the actual context because Yahuwah always said to the Israelites, even though they were physically circumcised, they weren't circumcised because their hearts were hardened.
Exactly.
So, I think first and foremost, this context of this chapter has to go, especially with being grafted in, that you have to have a circumcised heart first, take part in the Passover. And then
right.
A physical token or a physical sign, just like the physical sign of this chapter 2 was the blood on the doorpost. It says, this shall be a sign. And so to me, this kind of resurrects with the, no pun intended, Yahusha's resurrection. But, and the, how you can connect that original Passover to what Yahusha is to us, even though we haven't read the Brit Hadashah scriptures, but that they were putting the blood on the doorpost physically, but spiritually, little did they know that we would have Yahusha's blood on our doorpost thousands of years later. So I kind of like the connection between that and that. Also, it kind of reminds me of sign. It's kind of like, Revelations talks about that those that don't have the seal of Yahuwah will be attacked. So it's like this destroyer, this angel of destruction that Yahuwah is sending on the Egyptians. He did not one of the Israelites suffered to be destroyed because they had the blood on the doorpost. So I mean, there's so many layers to that part of the chapter, what that could spiritually mean.
well, it reminds me of Revelation 7, which says, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. So as he was before, he is still today. He never changes. He seals his own. And there are different ways he seals this, but ultimately, he seals the ones who obey him. Unless you obey him, you cannot be sealed.
True. He's made promises. We keep our part. He certainly will keep his. And I must reiterate this, that people that think they've been saved, no one has been saved yet. We're in conversion. All of us we are in conversion. And only until the time comes when he actually delivers us will we be saved.
He who endures until the end, the same shall be saved. Shall be. Future perfect tense.
Yeah, that's important to understand too. That it's not like you're literally saved at the moment you believed in the gospel, and that's what the church always taught. That
that's right.
once you believe you're saved, once saved, always saved. Doesn't matter what happens.
And that's not true. You can lose your crown.
Yes, you can. It actually says, "Let no man take your crown."
Yeah. Let no man spoil you through what is the verse that Paul says? Don't let no man spoil you through vain deceit and so-called philosophy or wisdom of the world, and not Messiah. So like vain philosophy, and all that. So that, to me, I believe the better terminology would be that a gift is not irrevocable. Our salvation is a gift, and Yahuwah at any time could easily take it away from us. And he's
That's true. He also says if we do not use our gifts, then we will lose that and everything we had.
Yeah. Yahusha said, to more that is given to, more will be given. But to what little someone has and doesn't use, it will be taken away. So it's
Right.
Even one has more.
So yeah, I never was a big fan of the once saved always saved. It never made sense to me because I would read even the New Testament with Second Thessalonians. That alone tells you that there's a way to basically go back to your vomit. It's a possibility.
That's right.
The apostasy, the word apostasy is in the Old Testament. It's not like a new word that Paul's using. When he's saying the apostasy has to fall, coming the great falling away, and Israel, I don't even want to use that terminology, but Yashraal, they fell away plenty of times.
And guess what? Yeah, you can't fall if you don't have the truth to begin with. There's no apostasy.
Yeah, you can't fall from untruth.
And there's places Peter talks about, for someone to have known the truth and then to go back to their vomit, it would be better off that they never knew it to begin with.
Yeah.
There's a verse like that Peter talks about, and so I mean it's all over Scripture that it's not a one-time deal thing.
Exactly. That's why it's conversion. That's why it takes a lifetime.
But there was a lot in this. I know what I wanted to talk about. The verse that came across was very interesting. The part about Yahuwah executing judgment on the mighty ones of Egypt. I found that very interesting. Just thinking about recently in the past couple of years, doing research on, stuff like that, and what Yahuwah actually, and that's what made me think too that these things are not just wood and stone. If Yahuwah is like literally executing judgment, and that always like made me go, huh? Because I remember in the church they would kind of teach like idols are just statues, like there's no life in them, they're not real like living things. And then you come across this chapter and it's like Yahuwah is literally saying, I'm going to execute judgment on them. So it's like, it's like, it's like, it seems like they are something living. They are something that are physical living things that, and Enoch talks about that. I think there's a verse in Enoch that says that the Watchers taught men how to cast spells and put demons into statues, and that's where you get idols from.
Yeah, I think Paul mentioned that idols are nothing, or statues are nothing, but they attract evil spirits.
Yeah, Paul actually says he says the so-called mighty ones of the nations, or the mighty ones that the nations worship too, they worship demons. So
Yes.
So Paul actually attests to Enoch that idols are actually demons, and that makes a lot more sense in the context of the chapter we just read, because then it's not like just stupid wooden statues who is putting judgment on. He's actually putting judgment on these living beings that have humanity worshiping them, and these I forget what translation says the heroes of old, and these possibly these Nephilim or these the Watchers, had humankind worshiping them at a certain point. And that's where you get all these gods of Egypt. I don't even like to say gods, but these mighty ones of Egypt, these false deities that they worship. And it's very interesting how Yahuwah says verbatim that he's going to execute judgment on them. And I always found it interesting too. It says that he would have the destroyer, come and destroy these the home of the Egyptians and like every firstborn, which is very interesting because if you start the book of Exodus in chapter 1, that's what the Pharaoh was doing to the Hebrews. So Yahuwah is actually executing vengeance on Pharaoh because Pharaoh was trying to kill every firstborn male. And so Yahuwah is basically taking revenge. He's like,
and it's even better than that because all the plagues represented their idols.
Yes, they're mighty ones.
Yeah, Yahuwah was mocking them. He was like, "Oh, all right, you want to worship this little creature? All right, I'm gonna send these creatures at you." So it was like Yahuwah was mocking every false deity they worshipped.
Exactly.
So it was a lot of meat in this chapter, and the issue with the till evening or at evening. I remember doing a study with Bobby and Chris and everyone last Passover, April of last year, and it was interesting to see how translations differ from "you shall kill the lamb at evening" or "till the evening." And so we did a little study on that, and it was pretty interesting. I forget how the Masoretic text differs from the Septuagint, but I know it's a little different. I think some translations say at evening. Let's actually do a little test here. I want to do a little test for the audience to see what the differences are here. Let's see, share screen. Okay, so where it says kill it at evening. She kept till the 14th of this month. Let's see, I'm trying to see where it says kill it. I always forget the exact verse number that it's at. Always confused me. Let's see. Congregation of Israel. All right, here we go. Verse 6 says, "And it shall be kept by you till the 14th of this month, and all the multitude of the congregation of the children of Yashrael shall kill it toward evening." Let's see what the King James says for 6. King James says in the evening, whatever that means. What does that mean? In the night? Like that? Like what? Some of it's really funny.
Sundown.
Hallelujah Scriptures renders that till it between the evening.
Yeah, the ISR too. The 1998 scriptures, 1998 shall kill it between the evenings. So I guess the ISR copied the Hallelujah Scriptures on that one. And of course, the Tyndale doesn't have. I think the Tyndale I had is only the New Testament only, so never mind with that one. Let's see, what does the Geneva say? Kill it at evening. Wow, I like that one. Geneva makes it a little simplified there. You shall keep it until, and look at this. This is before the U came about. Got the V as a U. And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then all the multitude of the congregation of Yashar shall kill it at evening. Huh. That's just one of the interesting things that we came across last year that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes sense that it should be at evening because you're doing it when it's sundown. That to me that in the evening that's a little too general. That's like where I mean, especially with our modern Gregorianized type of ways of thinking of what evening is, because a evening could be 12 hours of the night, technically, like daytime, evening time. And so it's like it's kind of confusing when I see a verse that says in the evening. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of the evening, the end of the evening, like I don't know. That's just
Or between the evenings, and it makes me wonder. It just occurred to me that Yosha died around 3 p.m. on that Wednesday, and maybe we should slaughter the lamb around 3 p.m. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most translations won't even tell you that's around the time that he was slaughtered. Like most translations don't tell you the exact time. They'll say like the 9th hour or some weird like wording. Like I think there's only a few translations that actually say at 3 p.m. I think it's like a lot of the modern ones actually tell you 3 p.m. Like I remember
Right, and the 9th hour is 3 p.m.
Yeah, so people though in modern day they're like, what's the 9th hour? Like most people would be like, what? Like
Mm-hmm.
That would more correlate with the Hallelujah Scriptures rendition of between the evenings, because it's between the evening of the 13th, 14th and the evening of the 14th, 15th. From T to whenever the sun is set is the full afternoon, evening. And so whenever they killed the lamb, it would take at least 6 hours or so for it to roast by fire, because it's not the guts are not taken out; it's left totally intact. So in order to roast it by fire, it takes a long time. So I'd say 3 o'clock in the afternoon would be a good time to start killing the lamb. That's just common sense.
yeah, yeah. I've always debated that in my head, like how early should you be cooking the lamb? And I guess it all depends too on how late is sundown on the time of the year. I know for us up here, it gets back up to longer days around April. So
Right.
I think it's like 7 almost by the time it's April. 7 p.m.
I'm thinking it's around 7:30, because I can remember having Passover services, and they would usually begin around 7:30.
Yeah, so I would think around that time of the year, you would probably want to, if it's 6 hours, and yeah, you're probably, wow, that'd be early in the day to start cooking it though. That's like, wow, that's like, you gotta like have it slaughtered by the time it's like noon or 1 p.m. Then you're gonna start it that early. That's
Well, if you kill it at 3 and begin roasting it immediately after it's bled, of course it takes it a while to bleed out, but I mean, you've got, add 6 hours to that, and it's at least going to be 9 or 10 at night before you eat.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, which is not that big of a deal. I mean, I would think you're still going to be hungry that late anyway because you're going to be waiting the whole day pretty much to eat that. So, yeah, but I'm trying to think. There was also something else that jumped out at me. Let's see here. Let's see here. And it's kind of interesting too. It says that it's a memorial. So,
And it would be like a memorial of what? It's the shadow of things to come. So what fulfilled the Passover lamb but Yahusha, therefore it's a memorial of his death.
That's right, in remembrance of him.
yeah, I always find that interesting how John, um, references that Yahusha is the Lamb of Yahuwah. And I was like, it was always weird because I never knew like the Tanakh as a Christian. I would be like, what is he referring to? I always, understand the basic understanding, he was slaughtered for us and, he took our sins upon himself. But knowing now that the Passover lamb and all that, now it's like, wow, it's kind of like John the Baptist was like, or John the Immerser, better name used. He was kind of like pointing to the Passover and kind of saying, "This is the Passover lamb." It's kind of like him saying to all of the Yahudim, like, "This is the significance of why we've been keeping this feast. This is the Lamb of Yahuwah that takes away the sin of the world." So it's kind of interesting to put the puzzle pieces together and why he would make such he would go out of his way to call Yahusha the Lamb of Yahuwah. So I find that interesting now that I think back to that.
There's so many golden nuggets of truth in this book, and it's like everybody has a copy of the Bible. Who really reads it? Only those who are interested in what Yahweh has to say and what he expects from us, his people, will read it. Just a thought.
And we still find new things every time we read it.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is I wonder who this destroyer is because now thinking back, what's interesting is in Revelations chapter 9, verse 11, many commentaries will comment and say that the name Apollyon actually means destroyer. So I always wondered, it's kind of interesting that Yahuwah literally calls this Malachim of his that's doing, Yahuwah's will by destroying the Egyptians. He actually calls him the destroyer, like the. And I wonder if there's like a connection there, like I wonder if he's possibly using the devil, to do his will, and because it's kind of interesting that the only other time I mean, there are times I see a particular Malachim that's called the Destroyer, but it just seems like there's a connection there somehow. There's like something, I don't know, I might be reaching a little bit, but I wonder who this destroyer is that Yahuwah is sending upon the household of the Egyptians. Just a thought.
Yeah, the messenger of death.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
All right, so let's see. Do we have any other particular chapters or anything we want to go to? Do we want to go to Leviticus 23 next, or?
I apologize for my dog.
Oh no, it's okay.
Well, in studying the Passover, Leviticus 23 would be a good place to go. Verse 5, I guess.
Okay. All right, so let's back here. Go to every. Let's see here. So we're going to go to Leviticus 23, verse 5. Okay. And do you want to read, Shoshana?
Sure.
Okay.
First month, on the 14th day of the month, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahweh. And on the 15th day of this month is the festival of Matzah to Yahweh. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a Kadesh gathering. You do no servile work. And you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh for 7 days. On the 7th day is a Kadesh gathering. You do no servile work. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the Kohen. And this sheaf of the first fruits is offered during unleavened bread, which is why I read that. He shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh for your acceptance on the morrow after the Shabbat. The Kohen waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb a year old, a perfect one, as a burnt offering to Yahweh, and its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahweh, a sweet fragrance, its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generation in all your dwellings. And then it goes on to show that from the morrow after the Shabbat, from the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you count for yourself 7 completed Sabbatot. And then you get to another feast, which is the Feast of First Fruits. But the Passover actually ends right there.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the reading along with you there, the restored name King James actually says that this is Yahuwah's Passover. So it actually makes it distinct to Yahuwah. And I found that pretty interesting. And so, especially along the thought process of modern theology, oh, it's the Jews' Passover, really? Not what it says in Leviticus 23. says that these are his feasts, literally in the verse 1 of this chapter. So I found that interesting, and the sheaf offering, which so it seems like it's the day after the Sabbath. That's kind of how mine reads. Tomorrow after the Sabbath, or I guess it would be in modern English like the day after the Sabbath.
Yeah. It means the same thing.
So the 50 days, that's kind of interesting. That kind of reminds me of the Jubilee, 50 years. I wonder if there's any connection there, why they had to wait 50 days.
Well, I think it is a reflection on the Jubilee because Yahuwah says that a day to him is like 1,000 years is a day. And sometimes he uses a day for a year.
Trying to think. So where should we go next from here? Is there any other verses? I feel like we're missing a couple from Deuteronomy. I feel like there's a couple that go into the Passover a little bit.
Yeah, there's some verses in Deuteronomy that deal with Passover for sure.
Yeah, let me try to look that up very quick. Bible verses on Passover. I remember there was a couple that actually went more distinctly into the commandment of the Passover in Deuteronomy. I just forget which chapter it is. Okay, I see one from Numbers. Let's see here. Actually, a couple from Numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So we have another from Exodus. Let's see. I think we should go to the other Exodus one now. This is Exodus 13, verse 3. So let's see here. Exodus chapter 13, verse 3. Get my share screen up here real quick. There we go. And Masha said unto the people, Exodus chapter 13, verse 3, remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by the strength of Yahuwah, strength of the hand, Yahuwah brought you out of this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Okay. And then it goes on to say, this day you came out in the month of Abib. So that's the first month of the year, referring to when the Passover is taking place. Okay, so next one we got here is Numbers chapter 9, verse 6 to verse 12. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Masha and before Aharon on that day. And those men said unto him, we are defiled by the dead body of a man, wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of Yahuwah in his appointed season among the children of Yashmael. And Masha said unto them, stand still and I will hear what Yahuwah will command concerning you. And Yahuwah spake unto Asha, saying, Speak unto the children of Yashraal, saying, If any man among you, of you, or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or being in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahuwah. The 14th day of the second month at evening they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it, according to all the ordinances of the Passover they shall keep it. So that was pretty interesting. So that seems to be...
Yes, it gives a second chance to keep the Passover on the second month instead of first if they're unclean or on a journey. Also, I find interesting is that it mentions not a bone shall be broken of the lamb, and we know that none of Yahusha's bones were broken.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the Pharisees were trying to do that, actually. They were talking about that they might have to break their bones because tomorrow was supposedly their Sabbath, and they didn't want men being hung on the tree past evening. So I remember there was a verse where the Pharisees were actually trying to get their bones to be broken, take them off of the tree early.
But Yahusha was already dead. They thrust the spear in his side, and he had already commanded his spirit to the Father before that. So they didn't break his legs, but they broke the thieves' legs.
Oh, wow. Okay. So technically that's a sin then, what they did with breaking the thieves' legs. They weren't supposed to do that, right?
Well, it was murder is a sin.
No, I just wondering, like, I know there's a law that talks about like the law of hanging someone on a tree. Now, when they're hung on a tree, are they allowed to break their legs?
I'm not sure that.
I just wonder. I know there's. I remember.
I think they were going to be released, and to keep them from fleeing, their legs were broken. I believe that's what they were.
I don't know about that.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was an issue of the Sabbath. I remember that. It was more of they didn't want, the Pharisees selfishly didn't want them remaining on the trees until after sunset. And I remember them saying something like, we must, we must have to break their legs and take them off of the stake, the tree, before it's Sabbath. And I remember that verse where the Pharisees talked about that, and that's what kind of brought it up in my mind. I
vaguely remember that too. Yeah.
I wonder if that's even lawful. That's why I brought that up. I wonder if that was even like technically that was a sin for them to do that, to break their legs and take them off of the tree just so the guys weren't hanging on the tree into sundown.
Yeah, I'm sure it had some sort of political correctness. The Pharisees, when they felt like it, they would change the law to suit themselves.
And remember also that we're talking about the Romans, and the Romans were not obedient to any of Yahweh's laws.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But yet, they're interesting. they said, well, this is your religious thing. This is something you take care of.
Yeah, they what's his name? Pilate said, he said, I find no fault in him.
Right.
He's like, you know, he's like, I will. Basically, Pilate did not want to send Yahusha to the stake, and they pretty much put Pilate in such a horrible position. They pretty much said that you're not a friend of Caesar if you let him live. And it got to a point where if he let Yahusha go, then there's an issue with him and Caesar, and they pretty much were, they were trying to weasel their way into getting him to kill Yahusha for them, and that's why it was so interesting that they actually said let his blood be on us and on our children, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's a crazy curse to be putting on yourself.
That's right. And Pilate literally washed his hands of it.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah, he did.
his blood is not on my hands, it's on you.
Exactly.
And it's interesting how the Pharisees were just so happy to take his blood on themselves and their children.
And it makes
They
you
had
wonder
no idea
that,
what they were doing.
yeah, these Pharisees, I think they're, I believe they came from Chaldea, and they're the ones that are called Jews, but they're not.
Well, I don't know. It's the
They're
end
not.
times Pharisees that are the ones that.
Pharisee.
Oh, I know that. But can you imagine if you were a Yehudim, a real Yehudim, you wouldn't want to murder the only person that could save your life. Of course, this is something he had to do. Of course, he said to Peter, when Peter said, we won't let him take you, he says, Shaitan, get behind me, because it's something he had to do.
Yeah, I do believe that the Pharisees probably were blood. They were natural born of his brothers, but they definitely were of the devil. When Yahushua even said to them, you are of your father, the devil, and obviously he's not talking about physically genetic. He's saying that the works that they're doing, that they're of their father, the devil. And he's basically comparing them almost to Cain. He says, he was a murderer from the beginning, and you see, and right after he says that, right after you say, why you seek to murder me? So he's like comparing them to Cain, basically. And
yeah.
But I do agree with the Pharisees coming from Chaldea, because that's at least their religion came from Chaldea. Their actual belief system was, according to this Walter Bates. I saw something online where he was telling his congregation, he was like, what we know as Judaism today actually originated as Phariseeism. And he went into the whole history of it, how there was no, and so many people touch on, why is there no Pharisees in the Old Testament? Why is there only Pharisees in the New Testament when you get the Yahudim coming back to the promised land? And the fact that Phariseeism was even in existence until the 70 years of Daniel. And so that's pretty much where we get Judaism from. It was called Phariseeism or Sadduceeism.
And I understand that comes from, I don't know how true this might be, but they got their name from Peretz or Peretz. Peretzism. Of course, trying to usurp Yahushua's authority anyway.
Well, Peretz was the son of Yahuda that Yahusha came through. He came through that line.
Yep.
So all of the Jews in Jerusalem, in that area, well, in Israel, I suppose almost all of them came through that line, because his brother Zara had already traveled to the islands, to the British Isles.
Yeah, I always wondered too what the curse was, though, that actually happened to them and their descendants. Because now that I think about it, it's kind of interesting that it there's seems like for a while, not many of them were waking up, the Yahudim, and realizing that Yahushua is the Messiah. It was kind of like a stumbling block being put before them, and even though Yahuwah says that he would have to do this for the fullness of the nations to partially, harden Israel, harden Yashrael, but I think it also has to do with this curse. I mean, they said, let his blood be upon us and upon our children. Who knows? That could be partially a blinding spiritually. That could be, a way for Yahuwah to curse their descendants by making them not realize who they are. Who knows? Maybe that's why we don't know who the natural Yahudim are today. For the most part, we don't. There might be few people that do DNA tests and figure it out, but for the most part, that's like the one. It seems like it's the one ethnicity that's like still, in the dark. We don't know who. They haven't found out who they are. For the most part, I don't even think natural Yahoo came to know Yahusha yet. A lot of them. But it seems like maybe that could be part of the curse.
I think so, because that is certainly prevalent today. You look at it, most everybody in America don't have a clue. They think they're Gentiles.
And it's only recently that we've woken up. It's only been about 4 or 5 years since people all around the world have realized their true identity, and
That's true.
They're the seed of Abraham through Messiah, and not many have really woken up yet. There's only been like a minor awakening spiritually, and I think it's called the Ephraim awakening. I actually like that title because 48:19 talks about that, I believe. Or I think it's Genesis 48 or 49, where it talks about that his seed shall be the fullness of the nations, or a multitude of nations. Talking about Ephraim. So. And Paul actually references that, I think, in Romans 11. He starts talking about until the fullness of the nations comes in. And so I think all that was definitely predetermined. Obviously, Yahuwah, he prophesied about it through David in the book of Psalms, where he talks about this is Yahuwah's doing is marvelous in our eyes, when he starts talking about the cornerstone that the builders rejected. And that's a fun word study to try to figure out who exactly they're talking about. Who was talking about with the builders who rejected Yahusha, because you could go many different angles on that one. I mean, Freemasons are considered builders, so you can even go in that direction. So I mean, that's an interesting a prophecy that's been fulfilled, is that he is the cornerstone that many have rejected. So, but see here. Do we have any other ones for? Wow, it's getting late. Oh boy, I did not realize it's after 10 already. All right. Trying to see here. Maybe I should let's see. Oh,
Maybe you should go ahead and close.
yeah, let's call it. I think I'm gonna call us out. I just want to thank everyone who was able to join us on this recording. I apologize for the short amount of time for this study, but tune in next time for we will be continuing our study through scriptures on the Passover. I'm Brother Doug. This is my sister Shoshana, Brother Dennis, and have a good night, guys. Shalom.
Shalom, Doug. We enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. Same here. All right, so let me stop.